I'd like to call the board meeting of August 29th, 2017 meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Mr. Walters, could you lead us in the pledge, please? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Maria Luisa, could you please call the roll? Thank you.
Mayor Jimenez, Ms. Gutierrez, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Meyer,
Present.
Mr. Walters, Treasurer Board, Secretary Wolf, Vice Edmondson, Chair Fano. We have a quorum, Madam.
Voice isn't, but I am. Mr. Saldivar, could you please let us know if there are any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair, there's no additions or deletions to the agenda.
Could I please get a motion to approve the agenda as is?
Move.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Agenda approved. Thank you very much. General Counsel, if you could talk us through if there's any voting conflicts.
Do any members of the board have to report any conflicts with any items on the agenda? Seeing none, we move forward.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone in the public who would like to make a comment. You may come up to the podium.
We got no request, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Seeing none, we'll go on with the agenda. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved. Right now, I'd like to ask the Executive Director to please give us his report and the TPO report as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board. Typically, the summer is a kind of slow time at MDX, but this summer has been anything but slow. Since the last time we met, there's been a lot of activity. I'm going to mention some of the major issues and a lot of the events that we've been participating in. The first thing is the extension of 836, the southwest extension of 836. MDX is working closely with Miami-Dade County Planning and the Planning Department, the Regulatory and Economic Resources Department. Mayor Jimenez's administration will be filing the application to amend the Comprehensive Development Master Plan to permit the extension of 836 west and south to Southwest 136th Street, or the Kendall-Miami Airport. We have revised an alignment that, in recognition to the comments made at the TPO and at the Board of County Commission, that actually gets closer to the proximity of the existing urban development boundary. I've asked staff to start developing a finance plan of that project that will go through both committees. As far as the project itself, it still has tremendous support in the community. We will pursue it. The schedule calls for both a public hearing in the community project level and the hearings for the comp plan amendment to occur simultaneous, so that once both are prepared, we can move forward with that project. But to move forward with the project, we're going to have to place it in our work plan. We're going to have a finance plan. So I've asked staff to start developing that finance plan and start presenting it to the board over the coming months. Okay. If you recall, at the last meeting in June, the treasurer made a report on the budget, and part of what he reported was looking forward the capacity that we have available. Part of that capacity has always been reserved for projects like the Southwest Extension of 836. The question is, how do you set the rates? What's the cost? How do you let it? All of that information will come before you for decisions moving forward. The second project I want to report on is the 836, what we call 836-34. They're the direct ramps from the Turnpike to the extension of 836 with access to the Dolphin Park and Ride, facility. In the past, when we presented this project at the work program, the idea was always to provide Florida's Turnpike enterprise the funding so that they can go ahead and build our portion of the project as part of their widening of the turnpike. They were proposing to move forward with a design build. They have changed that approach, and they're going to go to a conventional design bid build, which then would delay the project. So what we did is that we took advantage of having conversations with Florida's Turnpike and asked if they would give us their portion of the project and allow us to move it forward as part of our ramps. And we're working out agreements with the Turnpike to move in that fashion so that we can provide access to the park and ride as soon as possible. So we will be bringing those agreements before the committees and the board in the next couple of months. On August 24th, last week, there was the kickoff to a process, a 16-week process that is being headed up by the Fast Track Institute. Fast Track Institute is led by three, actually, members. One is Salim Ishmael. He's the founding executive director of the Singularity University, and he's a former Yahoo executive. There's also Brad Templeton, who led the project team on Google Car. The idea for this program, and it's a partnership between Miami-Dade County, Mayor's Office, Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, the Knight Foundation, and Armando Codina, representing the private corporate sector. The four groups got together and funded this 16-week study. It's basically a look at how we can address mobility in Miami-Dade County, looking at it from an innovative, practical solution, looking at the future. I will tell you that last Thursday, and the mayor can elaborate, and I know Treasurer Board was there as well, there was about 200-plus people who showed up. It was fascinating, the conversation. I know Secretary Wolf participated as well. Everybody who was there, there was an eye-opening because technology is developing a lot faster. And the issue is, I don't have a crystal ball, and I've said it before, I don't know what the solution might be, but the question is, do we have our infrastructure prepared to accept these types of solutions? And I will tell you that listening to this conversation, listening to Brad Templeton, who spoke about robocars, and he painted a vision of what he thought a solution could be. And I leaned over to Luis Ahamil, because he was our project manager for the strategic plan. And I said, you know, maybe we need to get on the speaking circuit, because he painted a picture that's very similar to the spoke and hub concept that MDX has looked at. Let's get people to these hubs, these transportation centers, and from there, let's run lines that go to the employment centers. And I think that's the key. And how can we do it using current infrastructure, not making major investments in our infrastructure? So that's a process that, as they proceed, in fact, I'm going to invite them to come to this board and speak to this board now that it's official. So I'll have them come here and present. They're fascinating folks. They think in a different way. They look at things in a different manner. And I think that's what we needed, an outside look at potential solutions moving forward. As far as the TPO board members, a couple of items that I wanted to bring to this board. On July 20th, about a month after our last meeting, Chairwoman Fano and I attended the TPO, and we committed to accept or to take over the East-West Rapid Transit Service. I was clear that I was not prepared to accept Metro Rail as one of those options. I was very clear with the chairman and with the TPO, but we said we would move it forward. We've got the XT lanes, we've prepared for the shoulders, we've prepared for the hubs, and we can move this forward. Later on the agenda, one of the discussion items is a presentation by staff. For the last 30 days, we've been looking at issues. We're doing our due diligence. There's a lot of policy issues that we want to bring before you for discussion. We also, at the request of Mayor Jimenez, have a video that we're going to show you of virtual trains, potentially, on rubber tires. You'll see that video in a little bit. Two other things at the TPO, and this is an issue that I'm going to bring to Budget and Finance in 3 weeks. The TPO adopted a resolution establishing a financial participation fee. This is the first time that they do this. It's going to be a fee of $22,222 commencing in the current fiscal year and every year thereafter for non-county governmental agencies with voting rights on the TPO, of which MDX is one. The concept is to generate dollars to lobby for funding for the SMART plan, and it's federal and state lobbying. It's an expenditure of funds that I would have to bring before you and get your approval. We don't have a representative right now on the MPO, so I would have to respond to the executive director of what our position is. I haven't seen this. You know, I've had questions asked of me by board members. Does every member who has to pay participate in funding projects the way MDX does? Because FDOT is excluded from this because they're not a voting member. And I said, I'm not sure. I don't think so. We are our own funding source for implementing, so it's just a question that I'll bring before you at the next Budget and Finance. 2 additional cities have been included in the TPO, so now the TPO, I believe, has 24 or 25 members. City of Coral Gables official and the City of Doral now are both voting members of the MPO. Okay. The last thing I wanted to mention is that Chair Fano and I have been meeting with many representatives of the TPO, and as our schedule, the chair's schedule permits, we want to meet with all members of the TPO, as many of our delegation, and all of you board members in Sunshine meetings as well. This last month, we met with Representatives Asensio, Commissioners Moss, Levine Cava, and Chairman Bovo. We discussed, our program, and the goal is to make sure that everyone is aware of what our intent is, and the way we're going about it, make sure that everybody understands and that it's transparent, that there is no guesswork on how we reach certain conclusions. And that's, I think, the message that we've been telling everyone that we've been meeting with. And then finally, just as a informative, Carlos Zaldivar, our general counsel, was selected and accepted a position to participate in the 36th class of Leadership Florida, which is not an easy thing to do. So congratulations, and it's all on your time. So with that, I'll answer questions.
Yes, what did the TPO ask you to do in terms of lobbying again?
No, they didn't ask us to lobby. We want to collect $22,000 some odd dollars from each member, and that the money is going to be used to select a lobbying team and to do marketing for the SMART plan. So that's why I have to bring it before you, because since we don't lobby for dollars, it's a policy question that you need to answer. It's not about the money. It's $22,000. That's not the issue. The issue is, do we want to? And really, it's not enforceable. I've had this conversation with the TPO executive director. She knows it's not enforceable, but we're all partners. The question is, there's 2 questions here to ask. Should the TPO lobby for dollars? Is the TPO a recipient of dollars? And that I know the answer to. They're not the recipient. The recipient typically is the agency who's implementing. If it's SMART Plan, it's either Miami-Dade Transit, MDX, or Florida Department of Transportation. So shouldn't the lobbying effort be done by those entities? That's the question to ask.
It's a good question.
Thank you, Javier.
So I'll have that conversation at Budget and Finance in 2 weeks.
I look forward to it.
And we will formulate an official response back to the TPO. Nothing else.
Thank you very much, and I look forward, and I'm sure the other board members look forward to the presentation that you'll be giving us later on in the meeting. And congratulations again, Carlos, on Leadership Florida. Proud. Thank you. Mr. Board, time for the treasurer's report.
Are we jumping through the general counsel's report?
Thank you, sir. I better put my glasses on. General counsel, sorry.
No, it's okay. I've been jumped over before many times.
Congratulating you, sorry.
Thank you.
Forgive me.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Well, it's good to see everybody. It's been a couple of months, but I'll give you an update on what's been going on in my part of the world here at MDX. Update on the Attorney General opinion on legislation. As I reported at the last board meeting, I sent a letter of clarification to the Attorney General's office prior to the last board meeting. As of today, I have not received a response. Yesterday, I contacted the Attorney General's office, and they advised that they forwarded a draft letter response. A draft letter response was completed and was circulated to a review committee on July 31st, 2017, and there's no time limit for review, so I can't give you a definitive answer on when we're going to, hopefully by the next board meeting. Update on the ETCC litigation. The case has been rescheduled to go to trial just 2 weeks. It will start on October 16th, which a 2-week delay was caused because of some motions. The Sunshine Law. This is, one of the board members said, what happened? Why are we getting this? Honestly, you do have to, you're required. I have to provide you some training every year, and as I look at the mayor and Commissioner Edmondson, I'm sure you get this more than, not necessary, but more. So I will periodically give you updates. There's a insert in your packet that you could look at, but I just wanted to talk about communications between board members, because I see this once in a while, and it's not in a report, it's usually in the newspaper. And the Sunshine Law applies to gatherings of 2 or more members of the same board to discuss matters that will foreseeably come before the board for action. The meetings include, but is not limited to, telephone conversations, written correspondence, emails, texts, social media, blogs, and other electronic communications. It doesn't apply to social gatherings. You're allowed to have lunch with somebody as long as you don't talk about something in the future. You can discuss things that happened in the past with the board as long as it's not going to be taken up to discuss in the future. And this is more of for us as we, everybody's in different places. Email communications of information that does not result in the exchange of comments or responses by other board members on subjects involving foreseeable action by the board. So if someone sends, say, Mr. Board sends out a report having to do with finance, we usually send it out blind copy so you can't respond. We want to stay away from any types of responses on that. Last thing that I would like to talk about is the Roberts Rules of Order. I think we predominantly follow Roberts pretty well. I would like to offer this year, instead of doing the bond training, maybe we can bring in a expert in Roberts, and we can do that. Don't act so excited, Louis. But I think if I was going to pick one issue with Roberts that I think all boards overlook, is the amendment to the motion rule. I'll go over it real quickly. Any motion can be amended as long as it does not contradict the motion it's amending. All amendments have to be voted upon, and they are debatable. Once the amendment is voted upon, the original motion must be voted upon also. If any board members have any other issues that you think that you want me to address, I'd be more than happy to address. There's no harms in reviewing our rules of procedure. And with that, I'm complete.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any comments, any questions? Mr. Ward.
Madam Chair, thank you. Board members and the public attending. There is no formal report from the treasurer's perspective because we are waiting for the audit report that will be issued in the month of September. But I do have some items that I would like to point out. In the package, there is the audit planning guide for 2017, in which you will find an outline of roles and responsibilities from the parties, both from the auditor's perspective and from our side. I'd like to remind everybody that the auditor usually randomly selects 2 board members to participate in the audit. So for that, if anybody's interested in volunteering to coordinate with Maria Luisa, our secretary, I am being asked to remind board members that their annual disclosure is due on September 7th for those that have not delivered their annual disclosure. I have September the 7th.
Then they extended.
Okay. The reason for this disclosure is to fulfill the audit requirements from the Florida Transportation Commission reporting. And Marie, am I done? You're good. That's it. Madam Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Madam Chair, we're warming you up for next month because next month is going to be a long agenda. So we're letting you ease into it.
Hopefully I'll get my voice back by then. Okay, so we're looking to approve the travel General Counsel, could you do that?
Sure. The consent agenda, item 7, travel approval, October 4th, 2017, trip to Tampa, Florida by Executive Director Rodriguez to attend the 2007 CUTR Annual Transportation Achievement Awards, and also October 16th through the 17th, 2017, trip to Jacksonville, Florida by Board Member Meyer and Executive Director Rodriguez to attend Team Florida quarterly meeting.
Move it.
Board members, if I may, the Cutter Awards is recognizing our former board member, Maurice Ferre. He's going to be the first inductee into the Cutter Hall of Fame, Transportation Hall of Fame. So MDX is going to be represented. We have a table. If any board member wants to attend, wants to go with us, please, we'll make the arrangements to get up to Tampa.
Congratulations again to our former board member, Mayor Maurice Ferre. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Already moved it.
Passes. Safe travels. Okay. I've asked the director to prepare for us a memorandum discussing the 2 policy issues I'd like to further explore with the board. One issue is to extend the enrollment period for the frequent driver program, because sometimes it doesn't start, well, actually it hasn't started until January. I'd like to see if we could do it when the checks go out, because there's a buzz, there'll be media, people know about it, and it'll give more opportunity for folks to sign up. And the more people that sign up, the more people that can get refunds. One of the things. The other thing that I asked Marie to explore was, because I've been approached by drivers and constituents and friends and neighbors and family about looking to lower the threshold. I think Marie has included in your package, and I'm going to ask her to explain it, the different thresholds, one being $50, one being $75. And that's something that I just wanted to discuss with the board. This is a discussion item, and we can bring it back to budget.
Certainly,
Thank you,
Madam
Marie.
Chair. Just to give the public a little bit perspective on the program. The program was initiated out of a desire to reward our frequent drivers, our commuters, our daily commuters. The program started back in 2014, initially passed the board, and then it got revised into various forms as it is today, the Frequent Rewards Program. We have a 3-month enrollment period, which is from January 1st till March 31st, to allow customers to enroll. Customers who have enrolled in previous years do not need to re-enroll. We just send them an email stating if they could please update their account information, their transponders, and their addresses and so forth. During our September Budget and Finance meeting, we present preliminary financial statements to the Budget and Finance Committee. We have a recommendation of the distribution and percentage to the recipients of the program, which goes to the board in September, and then in the month of December, we actually mail out checks to our customer base. The qualifications that are required for the program are very simple. You must pay $100 during the fiscal year, which is July 1st till June 30th. You must be a SunPass customer, and you must pay tolls on MDX's expressways, our 5 expressways. So the $100 minimum threshold really amounts to about $2 a week. So that's really the minimum. So the discussion here today is whether or not we should lower the threshold to either $50 or $75. And I've included, just from very preliminary, for fiscal 16's data is complete, 17 we're still analyzing. But in your package, we did put, if I can find it myself here, in fiscal 16, we had a total of 112 customers registered for the program. We had almost 53,000 that qualified at the $100 threshold. We paid out about $5.3 million. What we see here is that customers who did not qualify paid less than $1.50 a week. In fiscal 17, and we're still gathering the data, what we're looking at just on a preliminary basis, 72,000 customers and small businesses would qualify of the 151 that are now currently in the program. So the discussion is, do we lower it to 75 minimum threshold or lower it to $50 threshold?
And the spreadsheet will show that if you lower it to 75, you would add another almost 20,000, but the dollar value is about 360,000. So the question is, and this is the discussion I had with Chair Fano, is what is really the intent? And that's why it's a policy discussion, and that's why we wanted to have a discussion, see where the board wants us to go, and then we can have a full discussion at, today, if that's the desire of the board, or we can go to Budget and Finance. It's up to the board.
Mr. Board.
So first, I wasn't there when the program was initiated, so what was the problem that was being solved by implementing this program would be my first point. And the second point is that the foundation of this program lies on top of a surplus. So if I'm able to do my job, there will be no surplus. I mean, we will try and pursue it because you can't have a surplus year after year after year, in my mind. That just means that you're very conservative in terms of budgeting. So by the third year in a row, somebody's going to say, well, that number, is not a precise number in terms of budgeting. And if we do that 7 years in a row that you have a surplus, then it's hard to argue that we could do a better job of budgeting. So those would be my two comments: is what was trying to solve, and number two, we should drive for a $0 surplus, which would eliminate the program. That would be my concern.
I can address why we created the program in the first place. When we closed the system, when we did open road tolling on 836 and 112, the question was asked of us, can we communicate with our users? In fact, there was a big issue about us even mailing out to the SunPass users. We had to write a letter, prepare what we were going to send out, send it to Florida's Turnpike, who administers SunPass, and they would send it out. From an MDX standpoint, we had no idea who the SunPass user was. We knew your SunPass number, but you were faceless. We didn't know where you lived. There was no way to communicate other than through a third party. So the original intent was, let's create a program that rewards. At the time, it was only going to be on 836 because this was the one highway that was the most impacted. And it was to gather as much information because it's a enrollment, so we would get their information. And that way we can communicate with them. That's how it started. The first year, we didn't get a lot of response. We got like 13,000, 14,000 people signing up, but it was 13,000, 14,000 emails and addresses that we were able to communicate with. The board decided in 2015 that if it was good for 836, why don't we do it for the entire system and reward the most frequent of users? That's where the thresholds came in of $100, and that's where there was actually a marketing budget established for it. We went up to 112,000. Right now, our database, where we communicate, we send out a quarterly newsletter, we have 151,000 people on that. When we sent one of the last newsletters, we asked the question that when we're done with this work program, what's the next project that you would like to invest? We got a tremendous response that the extension of 836 was number one on it. So there is an interaction. So that was, to tell you, that was the intent. Why was it important? And yes, it was a dividend-type program, and it does depend on us doing our service. But it works both ways. If a customer signs up, for them to be eligible, they have to be a SunPass customer in good standing. If they're in good standing, we're reducing our operating cost because I don't have to mail them a bill. So if their account is not in good standing, then I end up having to do a toll by plate, look it up. It costs me money to send out the invoice. So all of these folks that are interested in getting a reward are actually reducing our operating cost. That was how we prepared that program. But the original intent was to get the information from our customers.
Mayor.
Question, on our expressway systems, do we still have a discount if you use a transponder?
Yeah, there is a differential. If you use the SunPass, it's for instance, on 836, the gantry 70 cents for a SunPass, it's $1.40 for toll by plate. It's twice as expensive. But we don't charge administrative fees whatsoever. It's just a flat toll rate.
I'm compelled by the treasurer, and what he's saying is that we we apparently have gone, we've done very well, we've gone under budget, and so we refund. So it begs the question, should we, instead of doing refunds, can we look at recalibrating the tolls themselves?
We've actually looked at it, and we've actually, responding to a letter prior to you being on the board, we've actually looked at it. The amount of money that we're talking about, the impact to the recalibrating of the tolls is minuscule. It's a penny. Because there's over 490 million transactions on our system. So if you were to take last year's $5.3 million and distribute it amongst all of the gantries you're talking about a penny. So it was a very small return, and it wasn't addressing what our intent was, which was to reward those most. See, when we started the program, when we did the closing of the system, our traffic and revenue consultants came before this board because there was a lot of discussion that the folks in Kendall who do the entire trip were going to be paying an exorbitant amount. We did a complete analysis. What we found was that 8% of the trips on 836 actually do the entire round trip in one day. What's happening with 836, and that's because of the advent of Doral, the business center, you're getting a lot of smaller trips. What we saw was that 45% of the traffic originated west of the Palmetto and never went east of the Palmetto. And then 55% of the traffic originated at the Palmetto and went points east. Today, 3 years after closing the system, those numbers are staying true to form. You see a lot of smaller trips. So this was really, if you look at the money that we've been giving back, and if you look at the list, and you'll see this in September now when we bring a recommendation to you, the people that are really, really benefiting are those that use the expressway every day to commute. They're getting money back, a lot of money, and small businesses are getting a lot of money back.
I have a question, though. I mean, when I add these tolls paid by people that are over 100, 75, and 50, that adds up to about $26 million. Where's the other $450 million?
They're infrequent, and they did not
$450 million worth of,
$450 million.
well, you said that we had our toll revenue was,
450 million transactions.
okay, all right.
Our revenue is 228 was last year, $228 million.
Okay, that still
That's
leaves,
our
a
revenue.
that still leaves $200 million. Who are those $200 million?
Many, many, many infrequent users. Many, many people that spend less than $100 on an annual basis.
So could you look at it at being another way? Because the complaints that I hear is that, you know, we've added an exorbitant amount, et cetera. And I know that we get placed with a turnpike, and people don't understand the difference between the turnpike and MDX. And maybe what we need to do is put a huge sign, okay, that you just left the turnpike, okay, and they just charged you this much money, okay, and we're about to only charge you this, okay? So if you have a complaint, take it up with the state, okay? Because apparently that's where everybody's going bananas about, okay? So could we look at something different, maybe capping, that if you are a really frequent user, that we cap the amount that you pay on a yearly basis? Could that be a different way so we can say, look, the most you'll ever pay in MDX on a yearly basis, if you're a transponder user, is X, okay? Is that something we could do?
Please.
One of the experiences.
Plus the sign. Please put the sign up.
Well,
okay?
the sign, one of the issues, Mr. Mayor, is when we did the last year, the first year we went out and did the cashback program, one of the things I learned is that where would we be able to draw that line? For example, there are small businesses that received checks in excess of $2,000 because they spent over $6,000 between all of their transportation modules on our roadways. So where do we draw, if we're going to do that type of a cap, how much you can spend?
That's not per business. I'm talking about per vehicle. I'm not talking per business.
But it is per, but those are that business has individual vehicles, so they have individual transponder numbers. So they have like 45. So would you want to do it like, for example?
No, by vehicle. In other words, you cap the amount by vehicle, so it's not a business issue. We're really looking at the commuter, okay? That's who we're really trying to give.
Distinguish a business.
First suggestion to.
MD,
Can I answer your
business
question?
transponder. Sure.
Can I answer your question?
Sure.
if we borrow a page from other consumer agencies, other consumer products, so a typical, the way that the telecom industry solved their problem was when we used to get these bills that was $360 and nobody knew where it came from and it was very annoying and they generated all this bad PR, they came out with their flat rates. So if we look at the bell curve of consumption, I think that we're going to be able to measure very well and quickly identify the outliers. Those people that spend $200, $300, $150, that also generate the most amount of noise, and those people could be offered a monthly flat rate in which they could pay, pick the number, $50, $25 a month. I don't know what the right number for the bell curve is, but you could identify that. I think that it's easier from a finance perspective to solve the problem than it is from a technology perspective. So we now have to get all that data coming in, they get charged automatically, and we have to credit them back. But it can be solved, and I think that, that it's something worth looking into
Membership.
to avoid those people that, in fact, are paying a lot of money, and that, you know, we can cap them. And then the answer from a policy perspective would be, dear sir, dear madam, if you don't want to pay $250 in tolls, just buy the monthly flat rate, which is blank, $99, as an outlier. This is not going to be the average in the bell curve. It's going to be one of the outliers. And that would be another way to address what you're looking at. It's a consumer product that people understand. I'm paying my monthly fee, and that's it. I can budget for it. It doesn't depend on a surplus, because there might be no surplus. And I think it's going to be revenue neutral because we can identify what the sweet spot would be for those outliers, put a number on it, and then observe the behavior of those consumers to see if more people jump on board. My suspicion would be that a lot of those buyers don't really know what they're spending, but want to get it out of their heads and will just buy it. So I would suggest that that would be something to consider from the board's perspective. It would be a monthly flat rate determined by a study that we should be able to produce.
Mr. Chair, may I respond before we get to the mayor? Thank you. My only concern, Mr. Board, is what my experience has established is that many of those who are the squeakiest wheels are not the people who are spending the most on the tolls. They are more likely individuals who are, as the mayor correctly identified, are confusing their toll dollars with what they're paying on the turnpike and what they're paying on MDX tolls. It won't be those who would most benefit from this program because it's the cost of doing business for many of the people who spend the most on our roads. It's part of the cost of doing business. So they'll enjoy and they'll appreciate what we're doing, but it won't stop those who are going to find fault in our toll roads in that capacity. That's just from the time I've been on the board for the last 9 years, in my experience. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I think that you have to consider this. If we do have a membership, then that individual who's complaining about the high tolls they get, they'll know exactly what ours is. Well, heck, wait a minute, that $20 was MDX. That other $50 was the turnpike. Right now, it's a guessing game.
Right.
Right now, it's a guessing game. And so I think that may be the way that we really demonstrate to people that we're not the big problem. Could we be a problem? Hey, whatever, they're paying tolls for something that they never paid before, but we have to pay for the capital. But I think we're also getting hit with the blame for all the tolls when we're not all the tolls. And so if you do give a membership, that's all you pay to MDX. The rest of it is somewhere else. Maybe went on the Rickenbacker, or maybe you were you went somewhere else, but that wasn't MDX that charged you all that amount. Right now, like I said, it's a guessing game. You look at that bill, hey, how much is MDX? It doesn't tell you, right? Does it tell you this is MDX, and this is a toll, this is a turnpike, and this is something else? And everybody's using SunPass. So the more information that you give in that consumer's hands of where it is you're actually paying, then maybe most of those people are actually paying turnpike tolls, and they all think it's us, MDX, and it's not us, MDX.
I'm certainly not against anything that will benefit the consumer. But I'm sure, Mr. Mayor, you'll agree, we're also been the victim of an enormous amount of massive misinformation being
But this
printed
would
out
help
there.
to clear it up a little bit.
And
Mr.
hopefully,
Martinez.
if this is a way to clear it up, I think it's certainly something to be explored. I know it's not, it's going to take a lot of information being generated as well, so that the public is clear in that way, because efforts to clarify that, as you know very well, I've been seated at an interview where I've had the interviewers blame MDX, for example, for the managed lane to I-95, and I've had to clarify that because there has been a difficulty getting those things straight at times. It shouldn't be, but it is, and even those who should know make the mistake.
Mr. Wolf, and then Mr. Meyer.
Just a quick comment. The gas tax, not a toll, but people think that it pays for all roads, and it pays for most roads. What they probably don't think much about is how much they pay in a gas tax in a year, and how that compares to how much they pay for toll facilities. You can do the math yourself, but if you get 30 miles a gallon, 12,000 miles a year in a compact car, you're paying less than $200 a year in gas tax. If you run more miles than that, it's a user-based thing. But in the next few years, there's going to have to be a debate on replacing the gas tax. And it's probably going to look a lot more like a toll. And those numbers are going to start being compared to toll agencies. That's inevitable in the next few years. And we may not compare favorably, and 95 Express may not compare favorably when people find out how much they're actually paying, how little they're actually paying in gas tax.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Mr. Meyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board Member Board, you hit on a very important note, and going back to the concern for the consumer that the mayor had mentioned, being able to budget, I think, is a great component of that suggestion that the both of you derived at. Being able for our consumers to be able to budget. I think the discussion has changed and is weaved, but I love the discussion, and I think that we should take this up in committee. I will say to the discussion topic, I don't necessarily see, if we remain the cashback program, I don't necessarily see a need to decrease the annual expenditure on the roadway system. That's just my thought. One that gets roughly $250 plus back, because I spend nearly $1,000 on the system annually and 30,000 miles annually. I think that that's a fine number.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Appreciate the comments. Mr. Board.
So a couple of comments. My intuition tells me that the tolls that we have here as paid, which is these $20 million, $23 million, within the framework of the $240 million, the long tail cannot account for 90% of our revenues. The answer to that question would be there are a lot of people that didn't register.
Correct.
It's not that there's a bunch of micro consumers out there, because the population that we have here is kind of fixed, although there's a floating population, but 70% of the population does not float. I mean, we don't have 6 million people here, of which 2 million are residents. We have 2 million people, of which 200,000 are not residents at any given moment in time, or less. So I think that this needs further analysis. We need to deliver to the board, and I'm looking at you, Marie. We talked about this earlier before we started. We need to deliver to the board a matrix that clearly outlines what we know. And maybe we just don't know a lot of stuff from here. And as my final point would be, if we looked at the consumer product and the way the telecoms have dealt with these billing issues, the next iteration to that, with even more information, might be to create the family plan, which will allow a household to budget. So if I have my wife and my 2 daughters are going to college, and these numbers pop out, if I can determine that you come from the same address and that you are on the same credit card, or find other mechanisms, we might be able to determine, how do we put that together. But I would say that would be very ambitious as a first iteration, but looking down the road, you might put something like that together to try to address. We have a large population that does not have a lot of income, and that might be one way to address that. But I think it requires further study.
Treasurer Board, I think that, from and you were correct, because I misspoke, 151,000 transponders registered. That's about a third of the unique account holders that have a SunPass. So it's about a third that we've captured, because I think it's 349,000 unique transponder accounts. So we've captured about a third, roughly. So yes, it's people that have not registered, it's not important to them, they didn't,
Or they
claim
didn't
they
know.
didn't know, or they
Which
say
is
they
one of the
didn't know.
things that we'll talk about in communication. But I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the mayor and thank Mr. Board, because it's a very exciting idea. I'm all for it. So let the record reflect, I'm on board, and I would like to task you and your committee to please explore this even farther, and perhaps, if time allows, have something to be able to report at the next board meeting. Marie, can we?
Yes,
Thank you. It's very exciting, and I like it. Thank you so very much. Any other discussion on this item? Okay, Mr. Zaldi, I'm going to go back to you, because at the last meeting in June, we adopted our new revised bylaws. And during that meeting, the issue of the committee participation by the chair and the vice chair was discussed. But we agreed to bring it back, and it wasn't enough to come back for a single meeting, so I've asked to bring it back here. And I believe Mr. Zaldívar has put in your packet 3 different options, and I'd like to discuss it at this time. Keeping in mind that working with staff, they've provided a second option, and we've also included the option that Board Member Gutierrez brought last meeting. So I'll turn it over to you, Council.
Yeah, last meeting, we talked about responsibilities and the board being small, there's a lot more commitment. So the current status of it is the chair shall serve as a member of each standing committee with full voting power. We've provided 2 options. The first option would be the chair shall serve as a member of each standing committee, but only votes when the committee has tie votes. And the third option would be the chair and the vice chair shall serve as member of one standing committee with full voting power and serve as ex officio member of the other standing committee with full voting power. So their appearance is optional. I mean, they're ex officio, so they're not considered towards quorum. So that's the 3 different options, and if there's another option you want to discuss, it's up to the board.
I'd like to open it for discussion. Well, there's 3 different options, right?
Right now, the committees as populated by the chair comply with the current bylaw. The chair is on both committees as a voting member. In discussions with the chair, and rightfully, the board last time adopted that and then said, discuss it with the new chair and see what is the desire. Chair Fano and I spoke about it, and we came up with that third option. The second option was proposed by Board Member Gutierrez at the last meeting, where the chair is on both committees but only votes for a tie if it's 4-4. It's up to the board. I believe that's how we left it.
I do want to say on the record, as far as I'm concerned, I don't have a problem coming to the meetings. I come as often as I can. But I'm also looking for future chairs, that I don't know that it's fair to demand that the chair of the board come to every single meeting. And that was the reason that I brought it up for discussion. So I'm really looking forward to the board's thoughts on this. I believe, Mr. Walters, you were one of the people that spoke to this item.
It's a very valid point that we need to, because of the fact that the board has been reduced so that the subcommittees are not the same size, that we do need to alter the bylaws. And Shelley, I've known you even before you were chair. Whether you were on a committee or not, if you had the availability, you were here. So that's not surprising. I kind of like option 3, because I think that way you have the chair on one committee, the vice chair as a voting member of the second committee, and they both can be ex officio on either one. I don't have a real problem with that one. It's really about time consuming so far as it is for number, as far as 1. I think the third option is a relatively fair compromise, because there was a great concern of, you having quorum with 3 people and the chair being the deciding vote on any committee if it happens to just be 3 people. This way, it gives a little bit of flexibility to both. That's the one that particularly caught my eye. But I was the one who suggested that I was also the person that suggested that they be on both committees, so I think it'd be a little hypocritical for me to suddenly go against that idea.
You can change your mind.
I see the point of view on both. I see that it is very time-consuming, it is extremely difficult, and this way you do have the transparency where, for lack of a better word, if there's quorum was 3, the chair cannot run both committees sua sponte, for lack of a better word. So I'm okay with that one, but I was the one who thought it was okay the first time around, so.
Madam Vice Chair, do you have any comments?
No, it really doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Whatever I'm supposed to do, I'll do.
I like that. Thank you. I'm counting on you. So could I ask someone to make a motion?
Well,
Move it to
I'll move for,
action?
I have no, yeah, we can move it for action. I think we're all here, unless anyone is concerned. I'll move for this to be turned into an action item. Can we do that? Are you,
Mr. Council, we can move this
We've
to
done
be
that
an
in the past when we have a full
For an action
board.
item, anyone wants a second? For discussion only at this point. Moving that we discuss the 3 options and make a determination which one is a consensus of the board.
To move it from a discussion to an action
An
item.
action item.
Okay, I second that.
Now it becomes an action item, so there has to be a motion for the action to discuss it.
All right. Now, Mr. Counsel, can I move that we discuss the 3 options, or do I have to do them individually for us to move and then discuss the 3 different language options? For it to be follow Robert's
Can you
rules?
put all 3 together and just on one of them?
All right.
Yeah, and then if you
So let's
discuss
start
and you want
with-
to change, we'll
To make sure I did it right.
we'll
Thank you.
vote accordingly.
All right, you know what? Let's start with the very first one, is follow the order here. I move to move the what is currently the language that allows the chair to have full voting power on both boards. I mean, I move it just for discussion at this point.
Second.
Open for discussion. Individually now?
Pursuant to Robert's rules, I guess that's the way it has to be
The-
done.
Louis, excuse me, Member Martinez, may I,
Wanted to move all 3?
may I,
That's what I'm trying to, I asked for
you
clarification.
move,
To move one of them.
just move the one you want.
I want number 3 then. All right, well, because
Which one?
I don't want to dictate.
Last motion.
Number 3? Okay.
Number 3. Number 3 is the one that has the chair and the vice chair serve on as members of one standing committee with full voting power, and serve as ex officio on the other one.
So for the record, you rescinded your first motion, and you're moving for motion?
Yeah,
So
that's fine,
the
we'll do that
bylaws
one.
reflect that the chair and the vice chair serve as a member of one standing committee with full voting power, and serve as ex officio member of the other standing committee with full voting power.
Yes.
All right, and I rescind my second.
You rescind your second on that one? Does anyone want to second that one? I'll second. Second on Mr. Walters.
Do we have any discussion on item number 3? Seeing no on the motion on the floor. Mayor.
Madam Chair, I think if we're going to make you go to a meeting, I don't want to treat you like the vice president, okay? So you might as well
I
have
didn't
a,
either.
if you're going to go to meetings, you might as well have a vote in it. So that's where I would stand. okay?
I agree 100%, but I also feel that since this was something that was created by our chair, she thought came up with this theory, I thought it was also being respectful for us to discuss the way she wrote it, because I believe, from my understanding, is you played a role in drafting this, and I wanted to defer to our new chair in that
And
capacity.
for clarification, if I may, if you look at option 3, the chair is a committee member, official committee member, where her attendance, or the chair's attendance is
Expected.
monitored. By
For all
being
intents
by being ex officio on the other committee, the attendance isn't mandatory. But if the chair shows up, she's a voting member. She's a voting member. It's not the ex officio piece is that if the chair doesn't show up to that committee, it's not that they missed a meeting, and the media, and I'll say it, the media has followed committee attendance and board attendance, and that's where the sensitivity to that issue.
What about the vice chair? Is the same, what happens to this in the vice chair?
With the vice chair, in that third option, The vice chair is named to one committee, and then on the other committees, the same thing, ex officio. If the vice chair shows up to the committee,
Okay.
she votes.
All right, I'm okay with that. Okay.
Mr. Walters?
Does the ex officio member count towards the quorum?
Yes, if they show up, absolutely. Yeah, in the past, when we had 13 members, the chair and vice chair were ex officio to every committee. So usually, the chair and vice chair would show up to the committees, and they counted for quorum, they voted, they made motions. They were full members of a committee.
Any other comments? Mr. Wolf?
I'm not an expert on rules of order, but it seems very strange to be ex officio and full voting. Is this in fact a permissible approach?
Yes, all our, well, I mean, I'm only speaking for the tenure I've had here. All our ex officio members have been voting members. And they usually, if they show up, they count towards quorum, which would help us in a, we're smaller now.
Yeah, but you know what? This is my concern now based on this. This is basically not resolving the issue that we had about making quorum with a smaller amount of numbers if the vice chair and the chair can are available to make quorum on both committees. So it kind of defeats the concern we had initially, which was the fact that a quorum could be established between two or three individuals, with two of them being the chair and the vice chair. So the way I understood this, obviously now has been clarified, that I'm more concerned that it may not be what the issue that was raised before is going to resolve. Because look, the problem was the committees are smaller. So if the chair and the vice chair count against quorum, that's two. And if the committee is five, that means one other person there that made quorum, correct? Am I doing math correctly here or no?
Yes.
Okay.
If they're both present, yes, because one will be acting as ex officio, one will be a member of the committee.
Raised before now becomes relevant again, and it's just now we've changed the language. Just go back to and forget it. Let's just go back to what we said, and the chair votes in both committees, and that's it.
Well, but you have a motion and a second on the board, so,
Then we take a
on
vote.
the floor, so we're going to have to vote on it. So let's call for a vote.
Can I pull my motion? I'm going to pull it, since this is for more clarification. I'm pulling that because of the clarification on what ex officio stands for. And I'm going to go back with what I suggested from day one, which is the chair sits on both committees and the voting member on both committees. This is the current bylaw. So I moved that. Because
So
I
you
misunderstood
rescinded your last
Did it the
motion?
second motion. Now you're bringing back, the one you rescinded, you're bringing it
And I
back.
apologize to the board for not understanding what the term ex aficionado stood for. I did not know it was also a voting member and that would count against quorum. For that, I apologize to all.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, is 5.1 our existing policy?
Yes.
So there's-
5.1, the top. That's our existing policy,
Don't
yes,
do
sir.
anything, everything stays the same,
Right.
which is what you're
True.
suggesting?
Yes.
Thank you.
So then we don't have to do
You-
anything.
Yeah, you can have a further discussion. We could put this on for the Policy and Planning Committee, and you can have a further discussion about it, too.
Long.
Okay.
Stays as is. So I will be coming to all the meetings when possible. Thank you. My voice is coming back. Okay. Executive
If I
Director.
may, to tee this off, and I think Albert Sosa, if you can come up to the podium. In July, like I said in my report, on July 20th, we accepted, to take over the East-West Corridor and the rapid transit service along 836. What we've asked staff to do is to take a look at what that means for us. For the last 30 days, we've been looking at various issues. This presentation that we're going to give you is very similar to what we did to the committee, to the commission, to the TPO, but we've also got some policy questions, some discussion, some look ahead, and we want to get your feedback on it. We also have the video that we want to show towards the end. Albert Sosa.
Yes, Albert Sosa with HNTB, MDX's GEC consultant. As Javier mentioned, just as a matter of background, in early 2016, the TPO, then MPO, they adopted the SMART plan, which included State Road 836 as one of the corridors that was in play for rapid transit service. Then again, in June of this year, when MDX presented its work program for approval to the TPO passed a resolution urging them to assume the management or the commitment to deploy the SMART plan along one of the corridors. Subsequent to that, in July, of a month later, which was last month, MDX presented to the TPO our plan for offering premium express transit service as included in the current fiscal year budget along State Road 836, and also painted a picture to the TPO of what the future of transit in our corridors or along our system could look like. So I want to give you a brief overview of what that presentation was like, and then also offer some of the discussion that Javier mentioned. So why is this important? Well, as part of MDX's strategic planning efforts, as well as the TPO's SMART plan, State Road 836 was identified as a corridor that's in need of multimodal solutions. You know, it's the backbone of employment growth, it's residential growth, population growth in Miami-Dade County. So it's also a corridor that we recognize that cannot be widened further, right? We can't, in a traditional method, continue to add lanes and add capacity to it. So we need to look for solutions that are technology-oriented. How can we, through the use of technology, introduce operational efficiencies, use the existing footprint that we have to allow for additional throughput to use the system? In combination with that, we are going to use the Dolphin Park and Ride, which is currently under construction, should be finished in December or January at the very west end of the corridor, to anchor these services. So that's something important to talk about as well, our involvement with the Dolphin Park and Ride at the west end of the corridor. Basically, technology is transforming how we look at transportation. The way that MDX, as part of a strategic planning effort, looked at addressing that was through a network of what we call XT lanes, these express technology lanes, which are basically dedicated lanes for use by either transit vehicles, technology-enabled vehicles like automated, connected vehicles, ride-sharing platforms, TNCs as they're known now, transportation network companies, to use a dedicated lane and bypass any congestion you might find on the traditional lanes, and really allow an avenue for that additional capacity to leverage that platform that we have. Current projects on State Road 836 are going to implement that XT lane, which is basically that inside widened shoulder, all the way from 97th Avenue onto 27th Avenue. That's the first phase. It'll be completed by about a year from now, roughly. Then subsequent to that, the 836-11 project, which is in combination with FDOT's 395, will add a little bit more to it. And we're looking at expanding it to the west as well, which will follow on in the following years. But that initial first phase, that big useful chunk, will be available about a year from now. It'll allow for deployment of premium transit service, and it's also going to set us up for future technologies, right? We're looking at what additional technologies can we implement or can we be ready for to further leverage that inside shoulder, that XT lane. Bottom line, we have mobility problems that need to be solved through technology. They need to be forward-thinking, and we really need to think outside the box and in new methods to solve those problems. Basically how it works, you have hubs, right? In this case, 836, you have a hub in the west, which is the Dolphin Park and Ride, and you have a hub in the east, which is the downtown area, the government center area, which has a mobility hub there. We would be looking for folks who transport themselves to these hubs, whether it be through their personal vehicle, public transit, some sort of ride-sharing platform, and from there, get on a trunk line type service along State Road 836, utilizing those XT lanes, which would be an uninterrupted inside shoulder express lane service, all the way into downtown, where again, the person would make a decision. Do I get on Metromover? Do I get on Metro Rail? Do I get on a ride-sharing application or public transit of some other sort to get to my final destination? But we're basically offering a congestion-free ride on that inside shoulder, which will be reliable, safe, and convenient. So here's a picture of what it would look like. You have the 4 traditional general purpose lanes. The current projects are adding that 4th lane. And in addition to that, we're widening the inside shoulder for exclusive use for transit vehicles, connected vehicles, automated vehicles, technology-enabled platforms, ride-sharing platforms, et cetera. So they would be separated from the traditional traffic in the regular lanes. In our current fiscal year, so you as a board for the current fiscal year approved the deployment of a pilot project along State Road 836. It envisions service from the Dolphin Park and Ride into the downtown intermodal center along our soon-to-be deployed XT lanes. It would include traditional transit vehicles, premium transit vehicles, as well as private ride-sharing services, the Ubers and the Lyfts of the world, along with other services like that. It's a premium experience, it's reliable service, it's going to be attractive to choice riders, and it's really going to be a new way for people to experience transit in Miami-Dade County. You know, we're looking at partnering with the private sector to really be innovative with our use of this infrastructure, and maximizing that existing infrastructure without having to deploy a large amount of additional investment in the infrastructure itself. We want to be attractive to choice riders, and we, again, want to provide an alternative to our toll customers today. Today, our customer on 836 doesn't really have an alternative, and in this way, we're giving them an additional option that can be implemented in the short term. As Javier mentioned, we are doing our due diligence at this time to understand what these choices mean, what these decisions mean, and what additional decisions need to be made. From a legal perspective, there's a regulatory framework that the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, as any other entity, has to live with. Currently, Miami-Dade County's code, Chapter 31, Article 3, Vehicles for Hire, is the code that's in place, and it's very prescriptive on how entities such as ourselves can apply for transit service, to provide transit service in Miami-Dade County. So those are the types of, as we make decisions, we always have to have that in mind, is how do we fit within that framework, or how do we work with the county to change that framework? Are there changes that we can make to the legislation, to the regulations, that will facilitate these types of services by either Miami-Dade Expressway Authority, the Florida Department of Transportation, or any of our other partners? There's also financial considerations. Do we want to set up an enterprise fund, per se, to keep the finances of these types of operations separate from our toll operations and our roadway operations? We also need to understand what the initial startup costs are going to be for this, as well as the ongoing costs, because there are decisions that we will make. Some of them will lend themselves to a higher fixed cost on an ongoing basis, and some of them will lend themselves to a more variable cost on an ongoing basis. So we need to weigh that as we go through it. And then operational considerations are very important as well. Now, as I talk through these, it's important to mention that they're not mutually exclusive, right? I'm going to talk through some different options, some different possibilities. It's not to say that it's one or the other. It could be a combination of these, but they all have their pros and cons that we need to consider. As we look at service parameters, right, we're looking at launching some sort of express service on that inside shoulder during peak periods. Now, there's different ways to do that. We can do that on a fixed route, fixed schedule basis, which would be like your traditional express buses like you see on I-95 and those express lanes right now. They depart from their origin every 15, 20 minutes. They follow a fixed route, they get to their destination, and it's the same every day at those given times. There's also the possibility of offering flexible route, flexible schedule. So like TNCs, transportation network companies, Uber, Lyft, even Chariot, Leap, some other models. They're on-demand type services. So when you need it, it's there. When you don't need it, it's not there. So fixed route, fixed schedule tends to offer more of a fixed cost. In other words, you're making, whether it's you or you're working with a third-party vendor, there is a fixed cost when it comes to the infrastructure, right? There's dedicated buses for that service when it's fixed route, fixed schedule. When it's flexible route, flexible schedule, and you're working with a TNC as an example, you're not really making an investment in a resource, you're not making an investment in the vehicle itself. That falls outside of those parameters, so it has a much more variable cost model, which has benefits. You don't have to make a long-term commitment. You have flexibility to change it as time goes by. And depending on your ridership, initially, perhaps a flexible route, flexible schedule, transportation on demand model will work until you build your ridership. And then once you have a certain amount of ridership, you can make a decision at that point. Okay, we have sufficient demand to dedicate 3 vehicles to this type of service. So there's those types of decisions that can be made. Vehicle parameters are important as well. Having a branded service, like the I-95 Express bus, that requires a bus that's dedicated to that service. In other words, that vehicle cannot be used for something else, right? At night, that vehicle cannot go and do something different. It has to do that. So again, that represents a lot of fixed costs, but it does allow you to brand the service. It is your service. People will recognize the service. They'll know it when they see it. And there's a lot of positive externalities that come with that as well for the agency. The flip side of that is if you go with the TNC providers, Uber and Lyft, your ability to brand that service is very limited, right? They're independent drivers. It represents a very low fixed cost to you, but your opportunity to co-brand with them is limited. There will be marketing opportunities. There will be opportunities to get your name out there with them, but in terms of the vehicle itself, that vehicle goes away when it's done with the trip. You're not paying for it anymore, but it's being used for something else, so you can't really label it as the MDX flyer, as an example. Then the other considerations are pricing and fare collection. How do we charge for service? Where do we charge for service? Do we charge for service? Do we charge for parking instead? Is it a combination of both? There's pros and cons to each of those. And again, it falls back to the vehicle for hire regulation and how we need to comply with that. Revenue collection can become a point of negotiations with that we need to contemplate where and if we want to collect for charge for the service. So these are all considerations that we are currently in the process of further elaborating on, discussing, and at the staff level, coming up with an answer that'll best fit the needs of MDX and bring it back to the board for decisions as may be necessary. In terms of timelines, we're looking at this fall to really draft the service parameters with the aim of having an industry forum sometime very late this year or early next year, right? So it's either December, January timeframe, where we go back out to the industry with, here's what we're thinking. As the private sector, does this work for you? How can we make the RFP better? Do we have certain parameters in here that don't work for you or would work better for you this way or that way? That's the type of feedback we want to get. And then spend the early part of 2018 finalizing those parameters, with the goal of having an RFP on the street or an invitation to negotiate at very early spring 2018. So let's say March of 2018, we'll have an RFP on the street. Go through that process with an aim of having somebody on board, or multiple people. It's not to say that one is the answer. We could have multiple providers on board by fall of 2018, which is in line with when our XT lanes will be ready. So the timing really works on this. And it's also not to say that we couldn't deploy service sooner. Some of the TNC companies have already reached out to us. They're interested in deploying service along these lines in our general purpose lanes the way that they're deployed today. So we are looking at ways to be able to advance this and offer service sooner. There's also potential for expansion. When we're successful at this, as we learn from it, we can expand the service on 836. In addition to the Dolphin Park and right on the west end, we can look at Miami-Dade County's Tamiami Station, which is under development, which is at 147th and 8th Street, the FIU Panther Station, which is also under development. And then on the east end, in addition to downtown, we can focus on the health district, we can focus on the MEC here, and offer connections between all of these facilities. As we look at the expansion of 836 to the south and to the west, there's potential for expansion there as well. As we develop State Road 836 and that extension, we're building in these XT lanes. That infrastructure will be there. The notion of having hubs along the way, park and rides, will be incorporated into that plan. So it's not something we'll have to add after the fact. It's going to be pre-built with that in it, and it'll be very easy to expand into that area, all the way down to the Miami Executive Airport on the south end. Outside of the 836 corridor, there's opportunities on 874 and 878 that we think are low-hanging fruit as well. I mean, if we're successful with this on 836, expanding it to 874, 878 from the Kendall-Tamiami Airport, from the Miami-Dade campus, the main campus, the Kendall campus, along 874 and 878 to the Dayline North Metro Rail Station is something that we think will potentially be an opportunity for expansion as well and serve more members of the community. And as you look forward, there's potential upgrades of all kinds. You know, we can look at different vehicles as the technology comes on board, and we have an exciting video to show you here in a minute. We also want to be ready for additional autonomy and connectivity as that becomes available. Our infrastructure's there. Our service is going to be designed to be flexible to allow for that. We don't want to lock ourselves into something for 10, 20 years. We want to be as nimble as possible, work in the shortest timeframes that we can to allow ourselves to adapt as much as possible, and develop additional hubs. You know, we think the Dolphin Park and Ride is a good first step. You know, we think there's opportunities for hubs along 836. Kendalltown Miami Airport is another opportunity, the west end of 924. There's multiple opportunities that we need to leverage around the county to really develop these hubs and offer this connectivity. That's really going to be a benefit for everybody involved. And, you know, at the end, we just want to be focused on moving people. It's not about moving cars. It's always been about moving people. That's always been our focus. We want to make sure that we're leveraging the technology to be able to do that in the best way possible. So with that, let me transition to this video. It was provided to us by the county, and it showcases some upcoming technology that's on the cusp of being deployed. Basically, it starts to blur the line between what we would call the advantages of a bus, that it's not a fixed route, that it doesn't need a lot of infrastructure, with the advantages of a fixed guideway type system, a train, and the amenities that go with that. So this is a good marriage of the two, and we're excited to see it.
Board members also think of each one of these transportation hubs as economic development centers. One of the things that I've always advocated is to, when we do this, we'll get into it. Volume, I think you got to hit some. There you go.
Madam Chair.
Mayor Jimenez.
I think that MDX should absolutely take the lead in doing this and become part of the solutions to our mass transit, our transportation problems. I fully support us moving, ahead and probably becoming the first actual leg of the SMART plan that actually gets done and move forward. I'm the one that provided that video, and some people, took some of my comments that I'm not really into rail, the wrong way. I knew that this exists. By the way, that exists. It's made by CRRC out of China. It's the largest train manufacturer in the world. It has $40 billion in revenue. It has 180,000 employees. This is not a fly-by-night company. And so that particular technology is going to go into revenue operation later this year. And what it does, it really negates the need to put a rail down. It negates the need to put power down because it runs on batteries and it runs on a virtual rail, period. And as you can see, it's very flexible in terms of it runs into some kind of traffic and go around traffic and do all kinds of things. And yet, it'll still be train-like in the sense that the stations are going to be like a train. You get on it in mass like a train. You get off in a train. You saw the interior. It looks like just like a train, except it has rubber wheels. It doesn't have, doesn't have steel. And so much cheaper to operate, much cheaper also to, the infrastructure is much cheaper. And obviously, that something like that could operate on our expressway system, very quickly. So, like I said, that's the first generation of that kind of vehicle. Just going to improve, and so the future lies in flexibility and options, and the fact is that the need for massive infrastructure, the massive infrastructure that we need is right-of-way. And the good thing about the 836, we already have the right-of-way. And so, I think, Madam Chair, we need to press on this, move on this as quickly as possible, get it in operation, start out with express type of buses, and then move on to something which is more state-of-the-art and the future, and move our people. In conjunction with that, we also need to press to expand the 836 and expand it down into Kendall and create a loop. There's 600,000 people that live in Kendall that are screaming for relief. And as the mayor, I'll be pushing that on my side over at the county. But as an MDX board person, we really need to expand that and then create this kind of infrastructure as we create the new expansion. And if we can, speed it up, because I would love to be part of the ribbon cutting, okay, of the expanded 836. And I think that the vice chair would also love to be part of the ribbon cutting of the expand. Okay, right? And we don't want to be invitees, we want to be chair, we want to be board people or something.
So can we say time is of the essence?
Time is of the essence. But time is of the essence for everybody's, trying to get the SMART plan going. We can actually be,
We can do it.
the people that lead the way. And again, the key to me is right away. We're going to have a lot of debate about what to put on it, but we need to obtain the right of way. And so in my other hat with the mayor's hat is that I want to acquire and do the necessary work on the north and the south busway right of way, so that when we can determine what it is that we're going to put on it. I'm not married to anything at this point. Some people are, I'm not. And we need to, that fast track, what we're doing at the county, and MDX has helped us put it together along with Armando Cadena and I think the Knight Foundation, showing us the what is coming, and it's coming a lot quicker than people think. Also part of this should be the way that we accept technology, especially automated vehicles. The one thing about the ride-sharing services, I think that when we start this out, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, you need to make sure that those ride-sharing vehicles are carrying 2 or more paying customers. Because if you're only carrying 1 paying customer, it's the same thing as having a regular car on the road. So we want to get more people off the road. Maybe they can then use that dedicated lane. Maybe they can use it at a certain time. But again, it's about giving people options, and I'm really excited about being on MDX because I think we can really be on the forefront of this and really get this going, before anybody else does.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you for providing the video. It's fascinating. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, and I think we should take the lead on this as well. You have a lot of naysayers out there, the rail people, the pro-rail, but once they see something like this operating, I think they will all change their minds, especially when they look at the cost, the amount of time it takes to get something like this started and up and running. I think it'll change a lot of people's mind. I'm looking forward to this. I'm a big supporter of it, and I will be helping the mayor push it through the commission.
Mr. Martinez?
Well, I want to start by, I couldn't agree with the mayor and the vice chair more about how we need to think out of the box and how we can improve transportation here. And I'm sure, Mr. Mayor, you've already said this multiple times, that the extension on 836 already includes the ability to add this type of technology to the expansion. We're not going to it's not going to be reinvented. It's part of the project from the very beginning. It's the same thing we did when we did the expansion on 836. We fortified the shoulders so that we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel in that capacity. And that's always been a forward-thinking aspect of MDX. I am concerned that we need to make sure that, and Mr. Executive Director, you can clarify this. For example, the 836 express bus, et cetera, who will be responsible for dealing with the operation of that? Will that be us or the county, or how?
No, the vision that I'm going to put forward to the board is that, MDX's business model has never been one of owning assets other than the highway facilities that we have.
Okay.
We have a great opportunity now to own the station locations and treat them as economic development hubs. It is my recommendation to this board, no different than asset maintenance, than all of the other business lines that we have, that it becomes a turnkey third-party operation, a public-private arrangement.
Okay.
And we will prepare this ITN, RFP with that in mind. The beauty of these systems moving forward, whether it's short-term or long-term, is that the infrastructure is in place. Florida Department of Transportation, Turnpike Enterprise, MDX worked together years ago on a master plan for the managed lane network. So whether it is our fortified shoulder or the managed lanes on any of these, just picture a virtual guideway that connects every corner of this community, from employment center to where people live to where people want to play. These facilities become the backbone for this type of service to run it. And to your point, Louis, and you and I have shared this always, to link the toll rate to an operating model for transit is a very slippery slope. So we will look to this board for different opportunities to take the pressure away from the toll rate and try to come up with non-toll revenues that offset it and provide it to the private sector as an offset. The other part of this is, again, we're not competing with Miami-Dade Transit type service. We're trying to take the 97% of the people that choose to drive their car and pay for gasoline, we're trying to attract them. So it's not a price issue with them. So we're looking at a pricing structure that's going to be different because we're trying to attract a different type of service. I think the keys to our success are going to be reliability and speed. It's going to be of where people live to where people want to go. And it's going to be our challenge to make sure that those hubs are strategically placed where it's easy to get to. And actually, Madam Chair, Board Member Moss, Commissioner Moss mentioned it on Monday at the Financial Priorities Committee. And he says that if you look at the 836 corridor and you take the extension of 836, MDX is actually taking 2 of the smart corridors. Because if you think about the Kendall corridor, in the heart of Kendall, if you have this loop that goes around, you're actually negating the need to have that on Kendall corridor itself. So he made that point because you're going to get people who are going to choose to go west, to go around, and you take the pressure off a very congested and very space constraint Kendall Drive. So he made that point the other day, and it was very telling. He got very good response to it. People hadn't seen it that way.
So, if I may, so Mr. Director, what I'm concerned about is exactly that. I do not want our toll drivers to be required to subsidize any type of transportation system. It goes against what we've always promised them. So we need to, I would request that when this is brought before the board, there is a model created to establish that opportunities in high, whether in private or whether those who take, the third party that takes this on, takes on the responsibility that should there be shortfalls, it is their responsibility to find revenues or we assist them, not that it comes out of our fund. The other concern I have is from as a lawyer, I'm always thinking this way, is since this will be something public, I would ask council to make sure that we are not going to run into any conflicts with any of the current county ordinances or statutes in reference to operation, employers, et cetera, on how it's, on what is required, because as in many aspects, there could be something that's going to have a direct effect on wages, and that could, you know, if you're in a private company, you may want to have a different wage scale as is established by the county, and we need to make sure we're in compliance with the rules and regulations that are required. I just don't know how that works in that capacity. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let me assure you that as my role now as mayor,
Sure.
now I have no intention of making this, you know, a Miami-Dade Transit
Okay.
service, okay? It needs to be an MDX service, or it needs to be a privatized service, because a Miami-Dade Transit service then would be very expensive. So, you know, I don't look at it in that way, and I'm just speaking for myself as a mayor, okay?
Right.
Mr. Mayor.
And I
Mr.
appreciate that,
Wolf.
Mr. Mayor, and I just wanted to put that out there. That's something we need to be aware of as well. Thank you, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Board.
Chair for the time.
There he has a question.
Yeah, I'd like to reinforce something that the mayor closed with, that the issue is occupancy. We need to get more people into vehicles, multi-occupant. And the reason for that is obvious. We have very little ability in this county to add highway lanes. We will not add at the same rate as population growth, so we'll have increasing congestion. Autonomous vehicles are going to be on the street very shortly, and they will drive up vehicle miles traveled. That's one of the immediate consequences. Ultimately, there will be enough of them on the road that they will give us capacity improvement on our roads. So we may be looking at some horizon year, 30 years from now, when all of our problems are solved in transportation. Could be. But long before we get there, we're going to be swamped with autonomous vehicles driving up vehicle miles traveled without our ability to increase the capacity of our roads. And the crisis in the next 10, 15 years is going to be vehicle occupancy. And MDX is going to be a partnership. It's going to be mixed mode. It's going to be how do you get from one mode to another and make it attractive so that people will choose to do that. Because people choose out of self-interest, not it would be good for everybody if I would share a ride. Sharing a ride has to make sense. It makes sense to them. And I think it's very important that MDX not just be focused on cars, paying tolls. That's going to be the primary mode of transportation for a long time, but we're transitioning to something else. And MDX can be part of the future. What I heard here in this presentation was the future, and we can go with that, or we can be left behind and not be part of the solution.
Thank you, Secretary Wolf. Anybody else?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Board.
Could the gentleman please stand up for a second? So I was just trying to, everybody here went to 2025, and I'm just trying to get to Wednesday. 97th Avenue to 27th Avenue, how long is the span? What kind of impact do you think that it will have on anybody's commute? I'm trying to think of these little baby steps to get to the rest of the picture that everybody sees here. And if we fail here, then the hill gets steeper and steeper and steeper for us to climb. So I think that we need to be very successful in the way that we plan and that we execute this first project, right? So I had a couple of questions, which was, how long is that span, and who's going to use it, and why are they going to use it? And then taking it to the individual, how much time are they going to save by using this first step that is being proposed?
So that initial stretch is about 7 miles. And the reason it's critical is our partners at Miami-Dade Transit, they did an operational analysis about 18 months ago. They actually took buses and they ran it. And they said, okay, where do we, if we are at the Dolphin Park and Ride and we access the highway system, how soon can we get to the left shoulder? And then if we want to get off to get to downtown, I-95, 17th Avenue, that area, how soon do we need to start getting off the shoulder and merging our way over? And the answer they came up with is roughly 97th Avenue to just before our toll plaza, actually, which is 19th Avenue, approximately. So we're getting that initial piece is the critical piece. Further to the east, you have limited benefit in the sense that you have Metro Rail. The Metro Rail column by the hospital district precludes us from being able to do that. So we're maximizing ourselves at the east. To the west, we can use a couple of more miles, and those will come on board over the next 2 years. We have a project in the work program that this board approved to widen the shoulders from 97th onto 137th, and that'll get accomplished within the next 2.5 years. But that's not the critical piece. The critical piece, we are accomplishing it now. When you do that drive today, it's roughly about 40 minutes during peak that it takes you to run that span. That time would be cut approximately in half. So you're looking at a 15 to 20 minute savings, but more importantly, it's reliability. The person who's using that service knows reliably that they'll be able to get that travel time every time, and they can plan around it. We're relying on the Dolphin Park and Ride to really be an attractor for people to come in, park there, and transition to this other service. There was a study done in 2010, so it's a little bit dated, for this type of service, not originating at the Dolphin Park and Ride, but originating at FIU, using a BRT type service. And that study projected a ridership of 5,000 to 6,000 users a day using that. And granted, that's in both directions, so it's 3,000 in one direction, 3,000 in the other, split during the peak periods. And that's fairly robust. That's fairly robust for a transit service in this county. I think deploying the service, making it reliable, making it efficient, making it attractive, we start to attract the ridership, and we start to learn how people want to use it, and then we can start adapting to that and making it more efficient. But I agree with you 100%. I wouldn't recommend we launch this before that chunk of the express lanes XT lanes is available, right? Because then we'd just be shooting ourselves in the foot. We'd be offering a
Let me ask you a
service.
follow-up question. So it takes 40 minutes and it'll be delivered in 20. So by the time that I park my car and I move across and I stand in line and I wait, what is the effective savings in terms of time?
So if it's an on-demand type of solution, that transition period is very minimal. You're looking at...
But the savings itself, I mean, 20 minutes is relevant, but if you take 10 minutes off, which is, in my mind, minimal too, I mean, I'm not sure that the tangible benefit is there.
I think you're offering other conveniences to the user, whether it's Wi-Fi on board, whether it's the ability to use those 20 or 30 minutes productively, as opposed to behind the wheel. There's other intangibles that I think will come into play. Speaking individually is from my personal experience, and I've ridden transit for, I don't do it now, but I spent a few years riding transit every day. I was transit dependent. Reliability and convenience, to me, is important as a user. I prefer to not be driving. I prefer to not be in my car. I prefer to be doing something productive. Last time I was forced to be transit dependent, I ended up getting a master's degree because I had the time on the train to do it. And I think people make those life choices all the time. Guaranteed that's very subjective on my part. So that trade-off is definitely something that people will consider when accessing the service.
I just wanted to volunteer a point that I agree with your comment completely. A lot of it is with the quality of the ride. And a case in point is if there's a huge traffic jam on I-95, your express lane trip is going to be lots faster. But normally, you save a few minutes. And if you ask someone, you paid that amount of toll for 6 minutes, it doesn't seem to make sense. But it's a smooth ride, it's reliable, it's comfortable, and it's not all about economically, did that amount of time equate to that amount of dollars? So I think there's a comparison here. If we put out a good service that's comfortable for people, they're going to take it.
Mayor Menace.
One thing I have about a concern about 27th Avenue, the stop there, is that how many people really need to go to 27th Avenue? And so we need to get to downtown as quickly as possible. We need to get to 137th Avenue as quickly as possible. And then when you have a ride from 137th Avenue to downtown that you can do in 20 minutes, where it's going to take you an hour and a half, now you got something, okay? So you're right about, if I'm going to save 20 minutes, am I going to really get out of my car? And then when I get there, I'm going to go to 27th Avenue. Well, okay. But I guess you're going to take it in. You have to take it in, right?
Yes, of
So
course.
the express side is to 27th Avenue. And I guess your 20-minute savings is all the way into downtown? Or is it just to 27th Avenue?
We
span.
would estimate, no, that the overall trip, right, if somebody was riding from the
Okay,
turnpike
you'll
to
save the 20
downtown-
minutes from there to there, and then after that, it's like being in a car, right? So if you're in a car one way or the other. The longer that we make this, and the smoother that we make this, and the faster that we implement this, all the way in, then that's when you're going to make, a big change. And the faster that we also get it all the way down to 136th Street, the more impact you're going to have, where people just take a 2-block ride and go into a park and ride, then take express services that will take them directly to downtown, to take them to Doral, to take them to job centers. That's the key. And then we have to figure out, okay, now when you get to downtown, you have a pretty good system, which is the Metro Mover that can get you to your job, et cetera, et cetera. Don't have that in other places. That's something that also, I'm not sure that we have to work here, but that's something that we have to work in Dade County, is how do we now solve that last mile? And I think that's where autonomous vehicles actually come in, okay? Or ride-sharing services come in, where then you do have that, okay, and you have that reliability that there'll be a vehicle there to take you that last mile. Because it does rain here. It does get hot here. All right, and so we're asking. You can walk a mile in New York, and not a big deal. It's in the cold and everything, but it's an interesting walk. Let's put it that way. Walking here isn't all that interesting. All right, when you're sweating or you're under the rain. So those things we have to work out, but we do need to be. I think we can be the leader in this and showing that this can work. And so I do have the same kind of worries about the initial one. But we need to expand it as soon as we can.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sosa.
Just as a follow-up, so my concern was not, will they use this, but what is the one that they will use? If it's 137, if the headline that we come out with is now you can go from 97th Avenue to 27th Avenue, how much excitement will there be? If the headline is you can go from 137th to downtown, everybody's going to say, how do I get on that? So I think that's the difference. And I'm not sure that, well, we'll wait for your due diligence, but just a note of caution would be, maybe it needs to be a little bit longer for it to be much more successful.
So the intent of the launch is, and I'm trying to bring up the map, it will be Dolphin Park and Ride, which is the turnpike, into downtown, right? That is the intent when we start. The actual uninterrupted shoulder usage portion of it is what's limited from 97 to 27. And again, the amount of time that it takes, or the distance that it takes that bus to transition from that inside lane, inside shoulder, to the right to be able to use the I-95 exits, for example, or the I-95 exits to then get into downtown, they need to start transitioning over at approximately 22nd Avenue. So we think we do have a functional route. The complete route, it's significant from the Dolphin Park and Ride, which is roughly 122nd Avenue, into the downtown area.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Mr. Sosa. We appreciate the presentation. In the spirit of time, I'm going to ask Terry to do a quick little report on our communications, because I think it's important that everybody knows the wonderful things that Terry's working on.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to do this. Many times we are gauging what is happening by media or the articles or the people that are covering their, writing their own interpretation of what we do. But little do we talk about what we do internally. So very generally, let me talk about, we have prepared a communications plan that is very flexible, because we know that all these initiatives are coming in and how we will need to address them. So what I'll go is into what we're really now focusing in. We have had a community outreach team that for the past years have concentrated in increasing SunPass penetration, drive safety, and they've been all over the county. from tag agencies to places where we get the most exposure. We are once a month at the government center, et cetera. What we're doing here is we are refocusing the mission to be able to assist. This is the group that talks to the man on the street. This is not the media. This is the one-to-one. And support these initiatives that are coming up, whether it's the reward, whether it's a transition of that reward program, whatever it may turn out to be, that we can focus them on doing that we can also deploy them to the areas that are going to feed the support on these initiatives, whether it's the 836 Southwest Extension, which we are, underway on the planning phase, or the extension to the east of the Gratigny, which we're also in the planning phase. So that's one piece. The other, which is very close to the chair, is the update of the website. We have right now, we're going into a two-phase approach. All is done in-house, so it has been very cost-effective with great resources that MDX has in here. And what we have right now, we have a much simpler homepage. That's what we're trying to do. Everything is updated from the projects to, instead of doing Google on MDX, you can go there every day and we'll have posted every news that is covering the agency. The second phase will be a little bit more to make it more people-friendly, more easier to navigate, and that all the information is there, but that all the information is on the right place. And then thirdly, which is the one that we never have an opportunity to talk about, is what we do with the public with our projects. And basically, there's two key efforts in this. One is led by Yvette Holt, which is the one that leads all the projects that are in construction. What this means is that on a daily basis, this is a hand-holding job. It's not only information, it's not only press releases, this is hand-to-hand every day. And that is why maybe one complaint may escape to you or to you, Mr. Mayor. I know that, we work very closely with your office, but most of them are kept there. For example, right now, Yvette is working on the signature project for us, which is that piece from 97th to 27th and a little bit more. And some things are coming up that are very important. In the next 2 days, there'll be a total closure of the westbound lanes from 72nd to 57th, and then on the east to put signs. So these kinds of things are posted on the website. The media will probably pick it up. But I wanted you to see it because it's better to see it than just to have it inside a folder. So that, as the chair says, you're in the know of everything that is happening in case anybody complains to you. This is the other one. And then one that is very important is coming on September 1st. This means now that westbound to southbound Lejeune will be closed, will be eliminated. And this is part of the effort of the operational changes of making all exits and exits on the right-hand side. So if you're going westbound, you're going to have to exit at 37, take 14th, and then go to the south until that project then prepares that whole piece for a better access. The other hand is the projects that are on the planning phase. The director, Mr. Rodriguez, talked about the ramps to the turnpike that will access the Dolphin Park and Ride. We had a public hearing. There's a lot of work that goes into place with the public prior to all these approvals. The next one that is going to happen this Thursday night will be a public meeting to inform and work with all the property owners, which are mostly industrial, that we're moving to the next phase of extending the Gratigny and connecting to the turnpike. And that will happen on the 31st. And then the last one On the September 13th, we're having a Community Advisory Committee meeting of the Southwest Extension. You have no idea how many people have called to ask, how can I help? So we have the CAC, we are putting in the website, we're putting it everywhere, and then the next one is an environmental forum of the same project, which we provide a forum for all non-for-profit environmental interests to come and talk to us. So that's a little overview of things that you never hear about, but I really thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you very much, Terry. Any questions? I just wanted to be sure that the board was aware of a lot of things that go on behind the scenes and really make a difference. So I just want to try and finish by 6 so that I keep my reputation correct. We're looking forward to working with the public and collaborating with our transportation partners. We want to provide mobility choices. We will continue to look for ways to get the message out, as you can see Terry has been doing, with the community. This will be done by making sure we're clear in our intent and transparent in our approach. Collaboration is very important for me. I look forward to an exciting year and working with everyone to explore, develop, and deliver transportation solutions. Just a couple of announcements. We have the joint meetings of the Finance, Policy and Planning, and the Ops. It's been changed from the 21st of September to the 19th of September at 10:30 a.m. And we have a Board of Directors meeting. The next one will be on September 26th, and the one following that will be on October 24th. Thank you all. I think this was a healthy discussion without having action items, and I appreciate everybody's attendance. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? Thank you very much.